Hello, friends. Welcome in. It's StatATL. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. It is January 2nd of 2026 and got some requests to do just kind of a high-level introduction to playoff best ball, both on Underdog and DraftKings, kind of talk through high level, talk through some of the differences. Kind of intending on kind of just making this a quick 15-20 minute video. I may do one draft just to kind of talk through the process. But with that, let's just kind of talk high level. We'll focus just on what is best ball, talk through the contest, the main contest on Underdog, the Gauntlet, and the Mitten. We'll talk through some differences between the $3, $5, $20 milli maker contest on DraftKings, and just kind of talk through the different strategies. So just high level, I know a lot of you have played regular season best ball. So playoff best ball, similar concept. It is a 6-player snake draft. It's a 10-round draft best ball format. On Underdog, it is a 10-round draft, so you're taking 10 total players, and your starting lineup consists of 5 players, a quarterback, a running back, 2 between the wide receiver and tight end. That group is kind of clumped together, and then a flex player that can be any position except quarterback. And the advancement rates on Underdog, with best ball in general, if you've never played a best ball contest, you select on Underdog, you select 10 players, and it automatically pulls your top 5 scores that week, utilizing this same format of the 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, and 1 flex. So if you don't have that many live players, as the rounds progress, you will take zeros in that in that particular week. So as it talks through advancement rates, the Gauntlet is 4 separate rounds where only the top team in a group of 6 advances out of the first round, followed by 2 independent rounds of 6, the second round is best 1 of 6, third round is 1 of 5, and then there is a 500 team finals, which is the week of the Super Bowl, with $500,000 to first place. The Mitten and Mitten 2, Mitten 3 advancement is a little bit easier in round 1. It's 2 of 6 advance out of the first round from the pod that you actually draft in. But then it's significantly more difficult. It is 1 of 10 in the second round and 1 of 10 in the conference championship, the third round, followed by a 375 team Super Bowl in the final round with with 50,000 to first place. So now that we've talked kind of high level, what's kind of the difference between DraftKings and Underdog? Well, the major difference is around the roster composition requirement. Specifically, we just talked Underdog with 10 players, so a 10-round draft. On DraftKings, it is a 12-round draft, so you're selecting 12 players, but a starting lineup of 6 players. So it's 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 1 running back, 1 flex, and the main difference here is there is 1 tight end position. So this requirement of the tight end brings in some additional strategy that we'll kind of talk through. Advancement on the DraftKings side, specifically on the Millie Maker, very similar to the Gauntlet. It is only the top team out of each round of 6 advancing. On DraftKings, the Millie Maker is an 816 team Super Bowl, super top heavy, these contests. So we'll talk about how you should be drafting those types, but I wanted to kind of high level talk about the difference between Underdog and DraftKings. So just kind of high level, let's talk through some thoughts. So if any of you have ever played DFS, like a Millie Maker on DraftKings, playoff structure is extremely top heavy. So you really need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable while you're drafting. And I like to say that safety is death. And so what do I mean by that? Like if you're building a roster that just looks really good on paper and you just feel warm and fuzzy, that roster's dead. In order to win this contest, you really have to build for first place. So what does that look like? We'll talk through if we do one of these drafts live, but you need to do something that separates yourself from the field, whether that is an uncommon combo early on, whether that's in your last round, kind of taking somebody in one of those Super Bowl matchups that you've built for, that is kind of a scroll down player, a player that is not drafted all that often. You need to do something that separates. So just high level, in order to win, you're going to need at least 5 players in the Super Bowl. In that final round, you have to have 5 live active players. So this obviously incentivizes stacking your lineups. You really want to consolidate around a few teams. Generally 3, sometimes 4 is kind of optimal. I don't think a 5-5 or 6-6 on DraftKings where you take all your players from only 2 teams. I feel like that's really way too hard to advance the first and second rounds with just that setup. So in general, I like to kind of gravitate towards 3 teams, sometimes 4, maybe with a one-off of 5. But in general, you really want to stack and consolidate around a handful of teams. And again, you need to just be conscious of the teams that you're stacking. If it is 2 seeds or 3 seeds that make the finals, and you only show up with 5 players or 6 players on DraftKings, you are likely going to be blocked out. So while that may feel uncomfortable to be drafting, some deeper players onto some of these teams, if you're not getting to a Super Bowl, with at least 6, 7, 8 players, it's unlikely that you'll be able to solo ship or even chop with just a few people. You'll likely be blocked out. So let's just kind of talk high level, single quarterback, double quarterback, triple, or even more of that. All right, guys, we'll just kind of cut to the chase. I don't think you should ever be taking more than 2 quarterbacks. I think you should go either 1 quarterback or a double quarterback approach on basically every draft. If you're going with a 1 quarterback single approach, you need to make sure it's not one of the 2 bye week teams, or else that roster is dead before it even contest even gets started. So I think a single quarterback is an aggressive approach. It's one that I do like to take. You want to make sure you're taking at least 4 players, 5 players from that team. So 3 or 4 plus the quarterback in general, unless it's a bye week. If you're drafting a bye week team or even 2 bye week teams on a single build, you can get away with only 3 players total, I think, from that team. But I think in general, you just want to be conscious of, again, stacking, leaning into being uncomfortable. I think if you're going to want to take a little bit of a less risky strategy, not all eggs in one basket, you draft 2 separate quarterbacks. This is an essential approach if you are drafting a bye week team. So, for example, this year, likely going to be Denver out of the AFC, for example. Again, recording this in January 2nd. Here, seeds by not yet determined. Looking like Denver will likely be the number 1 seed. In the AFC, a toss-up here. We've got a game on Saturday night between San Francisco and Seattle. Winner will be the 1 seed out of the NFC. But for example, if you're drafting and you're building teams around Denver and you draft Bo Nix, you want to make sure you're taking a second quarterback, or you'll be taking a 0 in round 1 and very likely not advancing and dead. So just kind of things to be aware of as you move through. So I think kind of high level, first 2 rounds, third round, optimal strategy, likely generally taking teammates you feel can make the Super Bowl. This is not an end-all be-all. This is just very high-level generalizations. Generally, I feel like you want to start in the first 2 rounds with teammates, whether that's, say, let's use Puka Nacua, Matt Stafford as an example, 2 star players from opposing conferences. Maybe it's Jackson Smith-Njigba and James Cook. I think if you look at it, a lot of the stud running backs, specifically to Underdog, go in the first 15, 16 picks. So, and those stud running backs are based on teams and seedings and things of that nature. I think a strong argument can be made that you really want to leave the first 3 rounds with at least one of CMC, Barkley, James Cook, Travion Henderson, Kyron, RJ Harvey. I think those are all guys that through the first 3 rounds, generally you want to have one of those guys on your build. If you don't, need to be conscious of what the rest of that build needs to look like for that to be an optimal approach. And then, I think just kind of high level, remaining nimble, it's critical, specifically on DraftKings. Like, it really is the Wild West out there on DraftKings. So I think just kind of being nimble, paying attention to what your fellow drafters are doing is really critical, to be able to kind of see what you need to take at each pick, and what the board is presenting to you. So again, specific to DraftKings, again, the key difference is around the tight end position. Importance of the tight end position to me hinges significantly on if San Francisco gets the bye. As we go into this playoffs, 7 of the top 8 tight ends in terms of regular season PPR scoring are going to miss the postseason. And so if San Francisco with George Kittle, they get the bye, essentially you're really only left with Dallas Goedert, potentially Dalton Kincaid, who's dealing with a knee injury in round 1 that can really separate. I think you could maybe add Hunter Henry, Dalton Schultz to a lesser extent into that bucket. But in general on DraftKings, my thoughts around tight end is that you should take 2. They should be from different teams. And they should ideally come from, obviously, the teams you're building your Super Bowl matchups around. So that's kind of high level. And then just kind of leave us here with just some projected seeding as of now. Right now, it's looking like Denver, and I'm projecting San Francisco to get the buys. The 4 seeds, the division winners in both the AFC and the NFC, are still to be determined. I'm projecting that as Baltimore and Carolina. Carolina kind of has 2 ways of getting in. They either beat Tampa Bay or Atlanta beats New Orleans on Sunday, and then Carolina gets in even with a loss. New Orleans likely to be without Chris Olave, which really hurts their offensive chances as well. So I feel like this is Carolina. And if San Francisco gets the bye, they'll play Seattle in that first round. I've got the other matchups projected as New England against the Chargers. Chargers likely have already announced that they're sitting Justin Herbert and some starters, so likely to lose. The Bills are playing the Jets, so will likely move up to the 6th seed and host the or take on the Jaguars. And then in the NFC, I've got the Eagles and the Packers. The Packers are locked into the 7th seed, and then Chicago hosting the Rams. I don't see the Rams as having really anything to play for on Sunday. If San Francisco wins, they're locked into the 6th seed, and so that's kind of how I see the playoffs kind of shaken out from there. So I think one of the things to just kind of be conscious of is to just, again, as I mentioned, remaining nimble. I think that that's really key in these contests. You really want to make sure that you are paying attention as the draft kind of unfolds to what your opponents are doing, and making sure that you can field a Super Bowl. So I'm going to actually hop into a mitten contest here on Underdog. I'll share my screen here. And we will just kind of draft along, and I'll kind of talk through some thoughts, kind of making sure that I'm noting, my thoughts as we progress here. So let me do this and see. Hopefully I am sharing this appropriately where you can see both, and I'm not. So let's try again. Some technical difficulties here, folks. Apologies for that. window. I want to share this entire window. Well, I know this is suspense is killing you. I have drawn the I've drawn the 6th seed here in this build. I'm just getting the screen up now. All right, I do think we got that. So, just kind of talking through again some of the strategies that we talked through. As we come through the first couple of rounds, we want to look at drafting some teammates or opposing players. We're being conscious of what the room is doing. So this draft starts out Christian McCaffrey, Puka Nacua. Those two generally go 1-2 in a different order. Jackson Smith-Njigba goes 3. Saquon Barkley 4. Josh Allen 5. So it comes to me here. I think this is a build where I'm going to lean in and take both Kyren Williams and Devontae Adams and Kyren Williams here. So leaning into the Rams, kind of with the thought of if Matthew Stafford does make it back to me, I will take him at the 3-4 turn. It's unlikely. He typically goes to the Puka Nacua drafter. If that's not the case, then we'll obviously draft through the AFC with a quarterback that direction. So the 5 hole goes Josh Allen, James Cook. It's a really strong start, one that I really do like when you get it. 4 hole goes Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, building through the Eagles. 3 hole JSN with Drake May. The 2 hole goes Puka Nacua, Travis Etienne, likely going to add Matt Stafford here. And the 1 hole adds 3 straight 49ers with CMC, Kittle, and Purdy. So the 2 hole does go Stafford. I would expect 3 hole here to go Travion or Stephon Diggs. He goes Travion. 4 hole, who started out 2 Eagles, would kind of expect Jalen Hurts here, just because I don't have a quarterback. So that is a risk to take Devontae Smith and push Hurts. I don't think you gain anything by doing that. So this is a spot where I would want to secure my quarterback. And he does. Josh Allen adds Devontae Smith. So here, this is a spot where we can kind of lean in. I'm going to give ourselves multiple directions here. I'm going to take Nico Collins, and then I'm also going to take Cortland Sutton. Kind of give us 2 AFC outs here to either build around potentially Houston and or Denver. And we'll just kind of see how the board shakes out. If we go just Denver, we'll need to make sure we take a second quarterback, as, again, the Broncos are likely to be on bye. So the 5 hole adds Khalil Shakir. 4 hole adds Kenneth Walker to his Philly stack. I would expect this to be Diggs here for the 3 hole. Again, just being conscious of what the room is doing, I feel like is really one of those underrated things that I don't think enough people do. I would expect maybe Jacoby Myers here from Nated 4444. Takes Josh Jacobs. Interesting approach. I guess he'll try to build out a second NFC team along with the Rams. Jay Baller just going straight 49ers. Adds Jennings. Curious if he'll add Pearsall so soon, or if he'll take an AFC piece. He does with Derrick Henry. Nate does go Jacoby Myers, kind of flipped with where I thought he would go there. RJ Harvey goes to the 3-hole. Hurts our build slightly. Dallas Goedert added by the Hurts drafter. Josh Allen here, maybe he adds Kincaid. Maybe he grabs DeAndre Swift to kind of open up another NFC lane for him. He goes Kincaid. So I think to me here, I want to grab Blake Corum, and I'm going to secure Bo Nix here. And then likely we'll add another quarterback option as this moves forward. So the 5-hole adds Hampton to give him another running back. I personally would rather him gone DeAndre Swift to give him another NFC out to go along with just Devonta Smith right now. 4-hole has Barkley, Brown, Goddard, Hurts. Adds Woody Marks as his first AFC piece. 3-hole continues to build on with his May, Henderson, Diggs, Hunter Henry stack to go along with just JSN. 2-hole adds Trevor Lawrence to go along with Jacoby Myers and Trevor Etienne. And he's got Nakua and Stafford there, along with Jacobs. This could be a spot for Christian Watson for him here. The 1-hole goes 5. Interesting here to take Swift to go along with Pearsall and Henry. If San Francisco gets the bye, this team is likely dead, or will be very, very hard for this team to advance in the 1-hole. 2-hole here adds BTJ to kind of lean into that Jacksonville stack. 3-hole now adding Charbonnet. Again, he'll be building New England, Seattle. As you see, he's got RJ Harvey as kind of a one-off piece. I don't really love that for him, just with Harvey getting the bye week 1. I don't know how helpful that is for him, specifically since he's going to have, or potentially could have JSN and Charbonnet on bye. But we'll just kind of see how that shakes out for him. Be curious to see what the 4-hole here does with his Eagles build. He ends Ramondre Stevenson to give him another running back out. Christian Watson goes here. So on this build, we're going to need a quarterback on this build. If Derrick Henry was here, we could build out. I think here we're going to go Chicago and add Luther Burden, Caleb Williams. So I've now got my bye week covered. Gives me another potential Super Bowl to go along with a Bo Nix, Cortland Sutton stack. Going to want to add one more Bronco to this build. May add one more Bronco, one more Bear on this build. Or we add another Texan. That's kind of the pieces for this build. Again, we could look at Nico Collins as strictly an advancement piece, where the main bet on this build is a Rams Denver Super Bowl. Okay with not having RJ Harvey on this build because I've got Kyron and Blake Corum. I think there's probably a build here where I may add Monangai here. Just to give me additional running back options round 1 to go along with Burden and Chicago. And then I do probably want to add another Denver piece. I think that's probably where we need to go with this build and just use Nico Collins as a likely advancement piece. So this is Kyle Monangai Gives me running back options. And then to me, this is either Troy Franklin or Bryant. We're going to go Troy Franklin here. And so this gives me 3 Denver pieces that can be paired with either Bears or Rams. Depending on how the seeding goes, this may end up being suboptimal if the Rams and the Bears play each other round 1. Certainly don't know that now, but that is an option. So this may end up not being a great build, but again, that's part of the risk that you take drafting before the seeds are final. So with that, I just wanted to at least kind of walk through what one of these builds looks like, and appreciate you guys tuning in. You can find more streams of content from me several days next week as we lead into playoff best ball time. So do appreciate you tuning in, and hope you had a great holiday season, and Happy New Year.